My name is Drew, and I'm the Aspiring Master, and welcome to the Aspiring Master Presents. This is a show where we talk about the meanings, misunderstandings, and insights about the important words we use and misuse on a daily basis. Really understanding what we're truly meaning when we talk allows us to convey and explain ourselves better to others. This not only allows us clearer communication so we can get what we need quicker and with less stress, but also helps us understand ourselves in more depth than we thought possible. On our show today, we will be piecing together some of the segments that we had to cut out of our other shows because of time constraints. This is an episode that we lovingly call Cut for Time. Today's episode is our cut pieces from our shows Friendship and Fair. So let's get to it. Speaking of that, when we're talking about friendships and strings that are part of it, I was talking with the nephew of my first wife. And he and I were talking about gifts, right? We were out smoking on a doorstep, and we were talking about gifts. And he was, I don't know, he had to be early 20s. And so he says, oh, we're, this, and he's got a new girlfriend. And he was talking about gifts and exchanging gifts. And I said, oh, yeah, well, the strings attached. Oh, I'm not one of those guys that have strings attached to my gifts. I don't give something that I have strings attached to. And I said, oh, well, that's great. That's perfect. Hey, can I bum a smoke from you? Yeah, sure. He grabs a smoke and he gives it to me. And I take it and I start crumbling it in my hands, just dropping it. Oh, whoa, what are you doing? Right? I said, oh, wait a minute. I thought when you gave stuff, you didn't have strings. And he's like, he get it, right? Like immediately. It's like years later, he said, hey, I'll never forget you doing that. It's like that showed me right there that a lot of times, even with just little stuff, we have strings. Like in his mind, I should have smoked it, but it's my smoke. I can do whatever I want with it, right? But it's like those strings are such a detriment. The expectation, I've got another show on expectation, by the way, if you haven't seen it yet. It's expectation is such a huge detriment to any kind of relationship, and especially friendships, where if we have an expectation of what everybody should or shouldn't be doing, I mean, if it's like, again, I've got filters because there are expectations. My expectation is you should accept me for who I am, and I will reciprocally do the same thing. Now, the one guy that was a possible friend that I was talking about earlier, when I was talking to him about it, and I was explaining, said, yeah, my friends can do whatever. And I told him the story that I had about my buddy and the moving man. And I said, yeah, for me, that's friendship. And that was the deal breaker right there for him. Because his mind, he like somebody that I can rely on, depend on, and that, I can invest all this emotion in, and they'll give all this stuff back. Right. And whereas mine was, if I wanted to do this. Now, I wasn't saying that's something that I am as a friend. I just said that's something that I want as a friend. Right. And I just went that, like, he just started avoiding me after that. And which was fine. Right. Like, I mean, it's just, I would have preferred him say, yeah, we're just not compatible. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
a
like,
tough conversation.
Instead of leading me along for a while.
It's for someone to have, though, right?
Yeah. No matter what, I know. I know what I would prefer.
Yeah.
What actually is.
Yeah.
But the expectation around friendship so I think that as a summary, right? I think that we tend not to think about what friendship means to us. But if we do, we have a bunch of criteria. And the question that I always have with people that have criteria around something is, why do you have that criteria? And let's get right down to it. What is it that you're trying to protect yourself from? Whether it's theft, whether it's I've only got a finite amount of energy and I don't want to spend it on something that doesn't give me stuff back. We all have an exchange of energy when we're talking about friendships. You and I have an exchange of energy when we get together. I enjoy the conversation that we have. You enjoy the conversation that we have. We enjoy the time that we spend with each other. And so that's a prerequisite for our friendship. Yes, we both get something out of it, and there's never a question that people get something out of relationships. And the more that we get out of a relationship, the closer it feels. Um, I think that once we get to the point where in a friendship that we can accept each other for who we are and not what that we can give us, because we're already fulfilled, right? Like when I'm talking to you, when we have long conversations, when we have short conversations, when we have short coffee, when you talk about what you're passionate about and it makes you glow, those things fill me up, right? I don't need the physical stuff. I don't need you to offer me help. I don't need you to be a part of my work experience. I don't need any of that stuff because you fill me just talking to you, right? Just being in your presence, sharing what we do really does have a reciprocal thing for me. And I understand the subtlety. And it's sort of like a diet, I guess. Let's take a look at it as a diet. Um, so if I'm used to eating a lot of, and I say this because I'm on a diet, right? So if I'm used to eating a lot of big fatty foods, right? Then I get bigger and fatter, right? If I get used to eating a lot of low fat foods, good proteins, eating less, then I get skinnier and more healthy. And I think that that's the same thing about friendships. I think that when your expectations, right? So you're taking globs of your friend off and eating them, and that makes you happy. Um, and I know that sounds weird, but
Oh yeah, no, that
try and get
doesn't
the
sound weird
analogy
at
that I'm
all,
talking
man.
about. It's just like a try and get the analogy that I'm going for here. Is like if I'm taking tons of energy from you in order to feed me, and you're taking tons of energy from me in different areas in order to feed you, again, we're getting fat and gluttonous on a relationship, as opposed to a relationship that, you basically you're eating healthy stuff. So when we come together, we're exchanging a bunch of healthy stuff already. We can do that over Zoom. It's not as
Mhm.
fun. It's not as
No, no.
personable as it is together, but still, it's a tremendous good time. It is. Like, I mean, for me, it's just a bunch of gratitude. I'm gratitude that you're here, and I'm gratitude that you come on my
Mhm.
show. I'm gratitude that you just talk to me, um, and it fills me to connect with you on the intellectual level. It fills me to talk about all of these things, and it's not. There's no demand to it,
Mhm.
right? It automatically fills me when I'm here. It automatically fills me when I'm in the room with you. It automatically fills me when we sit and talk, or interact, or whatever it is
Right.
that we're doing. So it automatically fills me. So I'm on a diet that doesn't require all the fatty foods in our friendship, um, and that I think that I've gotten so used to that you know, I I keep saying this. I don't understand why people trust me. It's really weird, um, because I come across a lot of the time as really clinical. And even to myself, I come across as clinical, right? And that's like, and a lot of the times I'm listening without emotion. Like, I mean, if you look at any of the outtakes of the talks that I have, when somebody else is talking, like, and especially if they've got two or more people on, right? I'm like stoic. I'm like, right? I'm not really reacting or acting. And so there's the part of me that goes, how can people like trust somebody like that? That's just kind of looking at them. Mm-hmm, yeah. Mhm, right.
Yeah.
Um, not that I don't think that I'm
Sitting there
trustworthy,
like a
because I do, but
psychopath, nose scratching
exactly.
on
It's
your
like,
face.
right. Well, because I see other people and they're all like, and there's me like,
Oh yeah, you're such a weirdo.
oh, I get it. Yeah. But anyway, but it's that the on the friendship level, because the friendship itself fills me. There's no necessity around it, because I'm already filled. And I've said this like from since I was like 19. Is one of the things that I understood is that if you were filled, then there is the opportunity, first off, to be able to gift without strings, because you don't need anything back, right? When I give something to somebody, everybody feels like they've got to give something back, right? It's like, no, it's just a gift.
Yeah.
Take it. Right? Stomp on it if you don't want it, or give it to somebody. Regift it if it's something that you don't like. This is a mirror of my esteem. That's all it is. Even at 8 years old, I knew that about the statue, right? This is me telling you in a physical form that I care about you and I like having you in your life, and this is my physical representation of the gratitude of having you here. Okay, and it makes me feel good to share that with you. Right? I'm already feeling good. I'm already there. So if we fill ourselves, if we're already filled to the brim, then anything else just gets plopped over on everybody else, right? It's like you get the benefit of it. If I'm feeling half full and I need Dan to cheer me up, I would probably phone you and say, Dan, I'm in a really bad place and I just need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Right? And you would be like, absolutely. I'm here, right? Give me 2 seconds to stop what I'm doing, and we can do that. But now that's something that I would rarely ever do. But if I did, I wouldn't feel that you would reject me, or even if you did, I wouldn't feel that it would be bad, right? Like, I mean, seriously, I don't need it. I just want it. Right?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that is something that definitely you I guess you find out. This is an old cliche, but you find out who your real friends are the ones who will understand when someone really needs to connect with you. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I got a phone call like that from you, or a message or whatever, like I really need to talk, then we're going to be talking. So yeah, and that's really sometimes it's as simple as that defines what a good friendship is someone who will do that for you. You hear it all the time, this is someone who will give you the shirt off their back, but it doesn't even have to be a thing. It can just be a moment in time, right?
Yep.
And that's important. Yeah.
But we having that whole idea that we all need to feel accepted and known, really, I think, it's very powerful. I mean, it goes down to our basic instinct as humans that we really need to be social, that we really need to have that interaction. And we need to connect intimately to feel whole. I mean, I know that a lot of the psychology around the school shootings and everything that are happening all down in the States, that a lot of those people that do that feel so incredibly disconnected from everybody that and they need to be connected, and that it becomes an anger and a rage at the rest of society for not accepting them, and all of the stuff that goes along with that. So friendship is something that we absolutely need, because we need that kind of connection. And I think that friendship, the deeper idea of friendship that I talk about, is being accepted and acceptable by the people that are your friends, is so incredibly important, because we so often fake our way through the rest of our day. And a lot of the times, like we're faking our way through our work because we don't like what we're doing. I mean, you and I have the opportunity to say that on a bunch of levels, we work in an area where we love. And so I get a lot of fulfillment out of the work that I do. I get a lot of fulfillment out of doing this show. This is a part-time thing for me. So I don't earn money from this, but it's still a fulfillment in my life.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of that. But, if I had to go and work at 7-Eleven, which is certainly a possibility with the pandemic, that if I had to, fake my way through the day and then come home, it's really nice to have either somebody at home or a buddy that I can go out with, that I can really be real with.
Right. Yeah.
I think that the first time that I ever experienced being really got in my life was when I was 18, and a buddy of mine named Derek he and I got together. Smart, smart kid. And but we connected on a level of we would go out and play pool and we'd just be
Right,
idiots.
right.
Like just idiots. We would burn ourselves, like we call them self
Yeah,
burns, and we would burn each other.
yeah,
We would do the adolescent boy thing of teasing the crap out of each other and just connecting on a fun level. First time I'd ever had that happen uh, with another person, and it was so incredibly freeing to feel gotten and accepted in an area that everybody just looked at me like, oh, what a weirdo, right? Um, and because it was me, it wasn't anybody else. And then I found this guy that, or we found each other, I guess would probably be it, that we could go out and just be complete and utter idiots, and have a great time and not worry about what they're thinking about us. We don't care as long as we got each other. And I think that that connection is super, super important to our well-being, just as people. I think that we're done.
yeah. We did.
Actually,
We
I
talked a
think that
lot. Yeah.
we talked a lot. Well, this maybe, oh yeah, this is like almost 2.5 hours. So it's probably going to be split into two shows. I've noticed that the past three shows that I've done are having to be split into two shows. Um, but it's like, wow, we touched a lot of places here, man. Dude, I am so grateful to have you on the show. Really, I am. It was a
Oh,
fantastic
it's fun.
talk.
It's always good to
Um,
talk to you, Drew. Yeah.
I love this stuff. Um, it one of the things that I love about this whole format that I'm doing is that we during the show we can all have revelations while we're talking,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah.
It's like I don't have some preconceived notion of where the show is
Hmm.
going to go. I
Hmm.
have no idea. We start off with the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I've got sort of a general idea of some things that I'd like to
Hmm.
talk about, but you never know where it's going to go. And the because it's so unscripted, you can come up with a story that triggers a thing in me. And like, I mean, if I hadn't gone back and talked about the unicorn, I wouldn't have gotten to remembered that story of me and my family and understanding friendship and how that works
Right.
with
Right.
each other, right? It's just it is such a fun format, and that you get revelations and stuff that comes out of your mouth of things that I've never thought
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was good.
I think that a fair test of a friend is if you can accept that person for who they are. You know, whether they be forgetful, whether they didn't show up, whether they, had trouble on the freeway, getting there, or whatever. I mean, if they didn't fulfill some kind of commitment or some kind of expectation, that they would still be your friend. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he says, friends are, they're the people that you can call up after 5 years, and it's like you've never been apart. You just start talking. You've always been that way. There was no expectation that you should be or do anything that you already weren't doing. Now, I think that, this, people may ask and say, or ask, people may say that, this is a pretty big idealistic view. I don't think that this is really that big. I don't know. I mean, when we talk, there's a varying degrees of friends that people talk about. Some say true friend, a true friend would, right? We have these rules and regulations of what friendship or true friends are. I mean, personally, I don't think that friends should be used as some kind of banking system. If I do this for you, you'll do this for me. I mean, it's like we're dealing with people as an emotional trade and barter system, or a physical trade and barter system in this case. That, it's expected that if you are my friend, that you should be doing this.
If I'm not getting what I expect, it's not fair. And I think that we've come around full circle to how we as people in this society, at least, look at fair. And I think that other societies do too. I've certainly seen people be offended from other countries if they're not getting what they are expecting is their due. Right.
Right.
I remember talking to a guy. He says, like he was living in Europe. I think it was Italy, and you would never ever. If somebody was coming in with a big handful of groceries, you would never walk by them without offering assistance to get them up to their place. If they're struggling, you would never do that. Whereas here, people walk by people all the time like that. Okay. And he said the biggest thing for him to get used to here was that nobody wanted to help anybody. Right? Nobody wanted to help anybody. And that was the fair thing where he came from. And so, if he was struggling with something and nobody helped him when he first got here, he's like, well, this isn't fair. What the hell are these guys doing? Right?
Well, in societal norms, for lack of a better word, do dictate how people behave, especially in public. I mean, now with COVID and the Me Too movement, guys aren't going to offer to help a lady to her car because, one, people shouldn't be touching other people during a pandemic, but two, the implication of, okay, if I'm helping this lady to her car in a parking garage and all of a sudden I say the wrong thing and she's accusing me of sexually harassing her,
Right.
well,
What am I
I
going
just
to
don't want to
do?
put myself in that situation.
Well, I mean, now we're talking about the what's separating us as people at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that too, like, I mean, when you're talking about the Me Too movement, when we're talking about anything in regards to fairness, the fairness rules change, right?
Absolutely.
It's like now it's not fair if women don't get the same treatment at work as a guy would. That's not fair.
Right.
But
Here's the problem, though.
Right.
This whole crush the patriarchy thing.
Mhm.
The patriarchy hasn't been held up by men alone. It's been everyone.
Of course.
Women, men. And you cannot crush the patriarchy by putting men down all the time. Because there are plenty of men out there who, yes, believe it's wrong, that women should be equal, they should be getting the same pay for the same job. Absolutely. But to equate, to lump everyone in together, you just I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I'll just get angry.
Right. Well, and the hue and cry too in this situation is, well, it's not fair that men get all of it's not fair that and we can go into racial inequality. We can go into, like, I mean, we're talking, and again, not fair, not equal.
Yeah.
Okay, not equal. Now, here's this is a difficult thing to bring up because we have to acknowledge that if we're equating fairness to equality, right, on whatever level that we're talking about, whether it's racial, whether it's gender, whether it's all of that, if we're equating fair to that, it's never, ever, ever, ever going to be fair, ever.
No.
And so that's I'm talking about equality. I'm not saying that it's not ever going to balance out and be fairer. Absolutely, we're working on it. But when we're talking about equality, I have to say, honey, I can beat you every single time in an arm wrestle. Every single time. I can say that I don't know any women that could beat me in an arm wrestle. There are women out there that can.
Yes.
Absolutely. There are, but it's relatively few in comparison to the majority. Okay.
Right.
So when we're talking about are you going to go out and work that arm muscle and do the workouts that need to happen in order to be able to beat me naturally? Because I can naturally beat you. It's just the way that my musculature works, the way that my body functions. So
well, and I'll be the first one to admit I arm wrestle like a girl. So
yeah, well,
I'll just admit defeat now.
Are we?
But again, I'm not complaining.
Right.
Oh my God, he's oppressing me with his arm strength.
Is it not?
No.
Is it fair or not fair that most guys are born with that? Right? Is it fair or not fair that nature put all of these things. Now, I'm not saying, again, I'm not talking about equality of opportunity. I believe in that. Absolutely believe in it. I think that to give the opportunity, but I also understand that genetics, I mean, I know that the musculature of some people, they're born with it. Like, I mean, look at the swimmer down in the States. What's his name?
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps, right? He
Yeah.
was born with a genetic advantage in the swimming pool. He was just born with it, right?
Simone Biles,
Yeah, exactly.
for another example.
Yeah, exactly.
She's changed the entire sport
of course.
gymnastics.
And there's always somebody, right? Like
there is. That's the thing. And that's the thing people forget. Yeah, you can be good at stuff and be great and consider yourself the best.
Right.
But there's always going to be someone who comes along who can do it maybe just a little bit better.
Well, I remember a scene in Good Will Hunting, right? When he's talking to the girl, and he said, "I want you to come with me," and he puts down that piece of paper, and she said, "It's not fair. I study and I have to learn all of this stuff, and here you come along and you can do it." And then he describes the fact that he says, "I was just basically born with it. I can't tell you why I got this. I just could play, right? I could just do it." That's the way that his brain functions. So there's never going to be that kind of equality. And is it fair in accordance to our definition of what we think fair is right now? Absolutely not. But if we look at fair on a pure level, of course it is. Nature developed this way. Our species develops this way. And overall, it is impartial to what it is that we think should be happening. It just is how it happens. And I think that the most unfair thing that we've done is place this idea of fairness upon it, because then it creates this division within us. We don't look at life and say, this is what happens and how can we share in it. We've looked at life and say, this is what happens and how much can we get out of it. And I'm sure that somebody would say, "Oh, you pinko commie, socialist," or whatever you want to call me. It's just like, no, I don't have this idea that like tomorrow we're all going to get together and sing Kumbaya. It's certainly not going to happen in my lifetime, and maybe a number of generations, until we screw up so much that we understand that we have to cooperate better. Right. Like, I mean, generally we start cooperating once we've screwed everything up so badly that we have to cooperate or we won't survive.
Yeah. Like if the financial system were to fail, we'd have to go back to trade and barter.
Oh, well, or whatever, right? Like, I mean, it's like there's going to be a bunch of us weaklings that are going to get killed. That's just the way that it works. Yep. Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't run that fast.
I haven't ran since high school. So yeah, I already know I'm going to be one of the first to go.
So if I look at that, whole situation, is it fair that I was born in a body that doesn't, like, that my knees hurt, or I was in gymnastics as a kid not knowing what it would do later, any of that stuff? The hue and cry is not, is it fair? Of course it is, because everything that happens to us is based on our choices and decisions. It's
when you're in it, though, it doesn't seem
it doesn't
fair.
feel
it's like
it doesn't feel good. No,
it doesn't. It's like me getting knee problems as a kid and as a teenager, and having almost every summer of my adolescence be occupied with post-surgical recovery. It's like it never felt fair. But at the same time, I had genetics working against me that gave me a birth defect that was hard to fix.
We go back to your definition of what fair was, and I feel it's unfair when I'm lacking, right? And you're sitting at home, you're recovering from knee surgery, you're hurting, you can't go play with the other kids, you can't dance, like which was a big thing for you, right? Like you can't dance anymore. And and it was important. And so when you look around at all the people that you get jealous of because they can dance and you can't because of your
No.
genetic, then you look at life and you go, life, this isn't fair. This wasn't fair. How come they can do it and I can't? And the truth
But
is,
then I was able to write.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you
And
compensate.
not everybody. Yeah. I
Yeah.
compensated.
We compensate and
Mhm.
we find other skills.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there's never a sense when you're sitting there on the couch, not able to dance with
Yeah.
your leg healing, that you are not shaking your fist at the world, at your deity, at whomever that you feel is
Well, at
responsible
the
for
time
what's
it
going
was
on.
silently because,
Right.
you know, if I did complain, there was always someone who would do the, well, you know, there's people out there who have it worse than you.
Yeah,
At
of
least you
course
can
not.
still walk.
Well,
And it's
and
like,
that's not the way feelings work, right?
okay. And what? I can't complain that I'm in pain, you know? And then at the same time, growing up with my dad, who was a stroke survivor from age 21, and seeing his pain progress and get worse, and some of the stuff he's had to go through. And yeah, he's had some knee issues, so he was always able to understand at least a little bit better than most people.
Mhm.
But I don't understand, you know, I don't know what it's like to have a stroke. I don't know the pain he goes through with the right side that was paralyzed, and how he still limps and has to deal with that. I don't know that. So it was difficult for me to, yeah, like my knee problems are worse than having a stroke. You can't make that equivalency. And of course, when you're 13, 14 and you're thinking the world is just out to get you
Get you. Yep, of
because
course.
you took away your adolescence, you know, you're not thinking that abstractly, but you're being told by other people to can it because, you know, the knee surgery isn't the worst thing in the world. And it isn't. I'll be the first one to admit that. But that's just my experience.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not having had any knee surgery myself. I can't make a claim to that. And
Well, I'd
it
rather
could be the
that.
worst thing in the world if it's the worst thing in the world for you.
I thought it was till I broke my wrist.
Of course.
And when that, I had to have pins put in it. And then when that anesthetic wore off,
Right.
oh my God. I mean, I had hardware in my knees by then, but I still haven't really experienced bone pain, like excruciating bone pain.
Right.
That was horrible. And then after that, I would say sinus surgery. I would rather have knee surgery than sinus surgery any day, because sinus surgery, I mean, your whole face is just a mess.
Right.
you
So
know?
let's take a look at it. It's like, yeah, you're feeling deprived. You're feeling the
Yeah.
lack.
Yeah,
You're feeling
absolutely.
like somebody's out to get you. Like you feel like a victim. Really, you really do. You feel like a victim.
Yeah, it's really hard not to fall into that, because you keep asking yourself all the time, why me?
Exactly.
Why?
And there's
What
no
did I do?
There's no
You
question.
know?
I mean, we've got a friend of ours that has hydrocephalus, and he's had multiple brain surgeries. He goes through this stuff all the time. He ended up having a stroke later because a brain surgeon accidentally nicked a vessel in his brain that healed right away, but he stroked. So now he's got all of these issues that he's got to deal with. Right now, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on in his life. Now, does he feel deprived? I'm sure that he does.
Well,
he's said that to me a number of times.
yeah, and like when we meet him for coffee, and he does his, you know what pissed me off, and then he apologizes for ranting. It's like, dude, you had a stroke. I think you're entitled to rant.
Do I think for one instant that he thought that the world was being fair, or that if there was a deity involved, that this deity was being fair? And because it's about lack, because I can't go out and do the same things that the other kids do. It reminds me of a Harry Belafonte song. Let us put man and woman together to see which one is smarter. Some say man, but I say no. Women got the man like a puppet show. Anyway, it's like when that kind of non equality, like, I mean, I was born with something that I can't control. Is life fair? Right? And I mean, remember that we're all the product of all of the choices and decisions before us. Now, Are we in control of it? That's the thing. I think that part of it is control. Absolutely.
And I would admit that now. About at the time with the knee stuff, I didn't feel like I had any control over my life. And I would say it's only been since the last 12, 13 years that I feel like I have any personal autonomy over
Yeah,
this,
it's like,
which is ironic because I don't no longer have a knee surgeon and I have nobody checking my knees these days. But at the same time,
but that's that I think that's personal
I
growth.
have, yeah, and I have the avenue to actually complain. When I'm hurting, I say it. When I'm hurting, I sometimes take a pill for it. I can do that. I can complain and know that at least you're not going to yell at me.
Well, right. Well, I mean, it's
and now with social media being like, especially now during the pandemic, everybody's, I just need to vent. I just need to say this. I just need to, sometimes, they're looking for someone to commiserate with. Other times they're not. They just got to get it off their chest. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, in the beginning we thought vague booking, oh God, what a terrible thing to do. You're just looking for attention and all that. And it's like, yeah, but so what? If emotionally, if it helps them feel better and move past the emotions that are telling them life isn't fair, well, is it a bad thing?
Well, I mean, I was on Neil Donald Walsh's site, the Changing Change site, and I talked to a lot of people. I said, you have to be able to, first off, you have to stop taking life personally. And that's true. You like, if we're talking about fair, life is the fairest thing that you could possibly do because life is life, and it doesn't care whether you're whomever, right? We all have it.
It's just it's hard to accept when you're in something.
I know. I agree. And when we're talking about it, we take it personally as if it was aimed and directed at us.
Well, like intellectually, I agree. I completely agree with that. Emotionally,
yeah, exactly.
It's
and
like
that's the thing is, fair is an emotional statement that says,
absolutely,
I'm feeling like I'm a victim. I'm feeling like I have a lack of something that should be happening that's not happening. Again, expectation.
Yep.
And I think that fair, when we're using it, is more of a flag. It's sort of like when we're being angry. When we're angry, it's a flag to say, well, wait a minute, something's here. I feel that there's an injustice going on or something. And fair is that.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole divorcing ourselves from when we get angry at each other and taking the space. Because I know I've said stuff when I'm angry that I did not mean. I said it to hurt. I said it to make you feel the way I'm feeling, damn it, why isn't he angry and I am, type thing. So I think, saying something isn't fair is, like you said, putting the flag up. But when you can step back and you can look at the big picture.
Well, the question is, why do I feel that it's unfair? And what is it am I feeling? Am I feeling like somebody's doing it to me? And unfair feels that way, or or do I feel like I'm not getting what I deserve?
Well, and I think that when you're in that, you can't, it's not like you're sitting there going, I want someone else to take responsibility for how I feel. You're not thinking that, it's implied by your response, by your behavior. But I don't think anyone can logically say while they're saying something's unfair that, I don't want to accept responsibility for that. Maybe if you're a psychopath or something, but
But again, we're not saying it. I'm not saying that you're saying that, but I'm saying that if we are responsible individuals, if we are responsible people, that we understand that we feel emotions based on something. And we need to, first off, identify that emotion. Like, I mean, and you can't do it while you're in it, guys. Just not happening.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. That's what I was saying, that you cannot accept responsibility until you step back and can look at, why does this feel unfair?
Right.
Why am I feeling this? Why is this? Okay. Now, admitting where you are, of course, is the first step.
Exactly. Before we move off this.
It may even be the only step.
Before we move off this. On fairness, to be fair, we have to take a look at, there are situations where it is clearly unfair, where you are clearly a victim of things,
Yes, absolutely.
in accordance to expected norms of society. Okay.
Right.
So I'm not saying that if you feel unfair that it's wrong, because it kind of
No.
seems that that's what I'm saying, and that's not what I'm
No,
saying at all.
That's not, because your feelings are still valid.
Right.
Absolutely. This is not to invalidate any feeling.
You can say, if I made an agreement with you, if I've set a group of rules, then you have the right to have expectations that those rules should be followed. We have a right, as on an expectational level, to say that people will not break into our house and steal our stuff, because that's against the law. It's against the rule of society. It's the, all of that stuff. So we have an expectation.
Like getting attacked, or
yeah, exactly. If I was attacked for no reason whatsoever, that if I was feeling that it was unfair, that's certainly a justifiable feeling.
Absolutely. I think in those situations, though, when you can step back and you can ask yourself, okay, am I going to let this rule my life? Am I going to choose to stay in it and feel these feelings of wrongness? And it's sometimes, yes, staying in it is, valid. Absolutely. It's like with grief, you have
to stay there sometimes. It's just the way.
Yeah, you have to stay and wallow in it. And it's like you could be
work through it.
Yeah, you could be moving on. Things could be great. You hear something or you see something and immediately, boom, you're right into it. Okay, well, I'm just gonna sit here all day and cry and stuff, And yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, when someone when there is that situation of, yes, you have been wronged and it isn't fair, clearly, and it's not just your opinion that it's unfair. I think then, once you're able to step back, okay, is this going to control my life? Is this all I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life? That kind of thing. And I think that, taking responsibility for your response and how you move on from it.
I think in that vein, when we're talking about fairness, and I'm going to make a fairly big blanket statement here around fair, because I don't think that there is in reality anything that is unfair. And the reason that I say that is that we live in a society with other people and other human beings, knowing full well that some people do not live by our rules and norms, that we could be a victim at any time of anything. And we choose to be here in that capacity. We've chosen to live in this and risk those things that happen in this society all the time. And this is personal responsibility. This is what I'm talking about. And now, are you going to feel those things? Are you going to feel that you have an expectation that people should act and react a certain way? All of those things. Absolutely. I think that we were taught to feel all of those things. But I don't think fairness comes into it. I think that life itself, no matter what, is completely fair based on the choices and decisions that we've chosen to live with, whether that's out of our hands, whether the government has decided those rules, whether that because of, and I can tell you right now that capitalism is the biggest reason we have so much crime, the biggest reason. And I'm not saying that capitalism is a bad system. It's the best system we got, because communism doesn't work. So but because of capitalism, we are out for number one. We are trying to get money. The monetary system itself perpetuates many of the wrongs, if not all of them, that we are experiencing right now, violations and all of those things.
Right.
So, but we choose to live in the society. We are probably one of the freest societies and richest societies in the world at the moment. And now, for those people that don't know, we're living in Canada. So we can take a look at it as, is it fair. And it said, in accordance to the definition that we ran into before, and I'm going to say it one more time.
Because it's so much fun.
Right. Marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism, life itself is absolutely that.
Yes.
It really is. We are not.
No.
As people, we are not. So in accordance to the overall picture, everything is fair because it's the life we choose to live.
Yeah.
Within that, within our rules, within our little construct boxes of what we think should be or shouldn't be happening, whether that's broad, with some people it's a really broad thing, with
Right.
other people it's a very,
Others
very
it's
narrow
very
thing.
Yeah.
Very narrow thing. Within that construct, are there fairness and unfairness based on lack or violation or lack of equality? Absolutely. That is a real feeling. It is a real thing that happens to us. The question is, once you say, well, that's not fair, when you can step back and say, why is it not fair? What is it in me that says that should be happening that's not happening? When you start questioning those things and start understanding that fair is a gradient, right? As with anything, it's just a gradient. Because is it fair that our friend had hydrocephalus? Is it fair that you've had the amount of leg surgery or knee surgeries that you've had? Is it fair that you broke your wrist? Is it fair? We can look at those as violations. We can look at those. But again, when you can step back and stop taking on the violation, stop taking on the lack, and understanding this choice led to that choice, those people's choice bumped into my choices. All of this thing is life, and life is very fair, and it's based on the structure of these things happen, that things happen, those things happen, and this happens. And you can scientifically look at it. It is way too complex for us to actually do any predictions on.
Yeah.
But it's still life. And so when we're feeling these things, if we can take responsibility for those feelings, if we can say, oh, wait a minute, why is it not fair? Oh, I'm feeling lack here. Well, if I'm feeling lack there, is it a lack that I'm feeling in myself? Is it lack of praise? Because for me, sometimes it's a lack of praise. I want somebody to praise me and tell me I'm okay. But it's a lack in myself. It has nothing to do with a lack in the world. So if I'm feeling that it's not fair, what is it in me that I'm lacking? Not only what I think is from the rest of the world, but from myself. What am I lacking inside? And I think that when we're talking about fair, I think that it is just another emotion, exactly like, well, not exactly like, but it is a lot like anger that gives us that opportunity to say, wait a minute, if I'm feeling that it's unfair, am I righteously feeling that? Did we enter into a contract that we both absolutely agreed on all the points on, and you violated that contract? Then you can say, yes, I'm feeling that's feeling unfair, and that's a justifiable feeling based on the fact that we've made this agreement. But when I'm feeling unfair with a made up agreement in my mind, then I have to take a look at, well, first off, why did I expect that? Second off, why did I think they should comply with it? And what is it in me that I'm lacking that I need them to confirm?
Exactly.
Right?
And I think the minute you are able to step back and start asking these questions, even if you're miles away from finding the answers, that's the start of personal growth journey. When you start questioning why and what led to this? And I mean, it's very small, little baby steps, but the minute you start asking why, it's like you're already growing. You're already looking for accepting responsibility and understanding better why you're doing the things you're doing, why you're reacting the way you're reacting.
Right. I think that with that, and since we're like an hour and 45 minutes in, or something close to that anyway.
Something close, yeah.
Yeah. That that we should sort of end it there. It just feels
Okay.
like it's been completed. I as a summary, I think that when we're taking a look at fairness, of course, it's going to be subjective. It's going to
Mhm.
be something within us. The way that I've seen it used mostly is inequality and violation. We use that word of unfair when we don't think that we're getting something that we want. So we have a lack of
Mhm.
something in our lives, and we have an expectation that it should be fulfilled by something else or somebody else, um, and that fairness or lack thereof is really a statement of myself and why am I feeling that. And on this journey
Mhm.
that we go and we one of the things that I wanted to make a point of is once you stop uh, looking at the world as fair or unfair, it's a different world you live in.
Mhm.
It's all of a sudden it's not their fault. All of a sudden
No.
it's not even your fault on that level, but you understand that everybody's got their stuff and
Yes.
that we all are, whether we like it or not, are in this together.
Mhm.
And that my interpretation is no better than your interpretation,
Exactly.
and you just start taking responsibility, and it
Mhm.
stops mattering so much that they should be doing something for you, and you start being able to do it yourself.
Well, and once you're able to, you know, see what you're doing, acknowledge what you're doing, take responsibility for what you're doing, you can begin writing your own story in
Mhm.
this life.
Instead of having
You
other
know,
people write the story
instead of
for you,
having other people
really,
write it for you, you
or
can
life write
set
it for you. Yeah.
right. You can set the tone of where am I going? What do I want to do? How do I want to get there? And how am I going to react to the
You know,
changing world around me?
one of the things and this actually brought me up another idea around fairness, and I'm trying to think of what other people would say. Well, what about
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
it's like, well, if I'm just sitting and being complacent, then and just accepting that life is the way it is, and then like how do I change it? And
This
I
isn't
know
a diatribe on pacifism,
exactly
you
what
know.
it's you are able, or we all are able to take what that sign is and move
Mhm.
forward in our lives, however it is that we choose to. How we move forward in our lives it happens to be how we other people will react to the way that we're
Mhm.
doing it. And so
Right.
that certainly affects our lives in tons of different ways. But when we're talking about fair, and I know that I don't use fair barely at all in my life anymore.
No.
I don't go, oh, that's just not fair, right? It's like, that's definitely not sharing, or that's not better for the majority of people. And I think
Mhm.
that for me is more along the lines of what fair means, is better for the majority, right,
Yeah.
of people. It's never going to be better for everybody.
Mhm.
I've never run into anything that is better for everybody, because we all have so many different tastes and different ideas and different um,
Yeah.
shoulds. Um,
Yes.
so
That's a good
um,
way to put that.
we have so many different shoulds.
Mhm.
And so I look at fair that way. But again, that's only my subjective idea around it.
Mhm.
And if you as an audience member are feeling unfair, you have whatever choice it is that you use, that you can do with this, right?
Mhm.
I'm not ever invalidating anybody's way of dealing with it. I'm trying to take a look at how we can take this, because there's this unconscious idea, make it conscious, because once it's conscious, you have the opportunity to change it and change who you are around it and what it means to
Yep.
you.
And
So,
then if it happens again, you
and
know,
and it may not. You may go,
yeah,
well, this guy's full of crap, and away I go, right?
yeah. But
And
again, if it does, watch to see what your initial reaction is. Is it the
exactly,
same? Is it different?
right. Um, okay, so that's it That's it for this one. I'm gonna pull the plug on this. We can talk little minutia around this, but I think that we got all the major points. So
I think so too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank my special guest, Talia Wilson, for coming on, the Aspiring Master, my wonderful wife, and just her willingness to sit down and talk about these wonderful things, and share her life, share my life. So I'm really grateful. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.